Okay. So here's our paper. Let me just grab my ruler, which is eluding me at the moment. Oh, there it is. And let me just double check these measurements. So these are kind of, it's 1 3/4 inches. Now with this one, if you end up working on a slightly smaller piece of paper, this is one project where I don't mind that you do that. So if you have like a scratch piece of paper that this fits on, that works. But we're just going to try to put it in the center of our paper. So that means we need to do 1 3/4 borders. So 1 3/4, 1 inch is right here. And then 3/4 is going to be 1, 2, 3, kind of right here on this line that happens right before the 2. So we're going to do 1 3/4 inches. And then I have the 14 inches in this direction and the 11 inches right here. So my paper is in a portrait orientation. Let me just get there we go. And it's like, there it goes. Okay. So I make a mark at 1 3/4 inches. I'm gonna move my ruler to line up with that mark. And then I'm going to make a mark at 7.5 inches. And so this one right here should be about 1 3/4 inches, and it is, so we are perfect. So I'm going to do the same thing at the top. So I line my ruler up, I make a mark at 1 3/4 inches. And I slide my ruler over and I'm going to make a mark at 7.5 inches. This border should, left at the edge, should be 1 3/4 inches, and it is. And I'm going to go ahead and connect these now. So I just line up the points and then I draw a line to connect them. And I drew that very, very light, but I'll go ahead and draw it a little bit darker so you guys can see. There you go. So I always draw things very, very light so I can erase them. So that's what I would recommend for you. I'm just doing it this dark so you guys can see on the screen. And then again, we have another tricky measurement, but you guys are good at measurements. You guys are like my best class at this, so I'm not worried about you. So we have 1 1/4 inches, 3 inches and 1/4. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3. And then 1/4 is just right here. It's just kind of that first big line right after the 3. We'll go ahead and line that up at the top. So do 1 1/4 inches. I then move my ruler down and then I'm going to do 7.5. And if I didn't show earlier, 7.5, so you just find the 7 and then the half is right in between 7 and 8. So 7 1/2. We'll do the same thing over here. So I'm going to do 3 1/4 inches. We move our ruler down. And then 7.5. And I'll go ahead and connect these. So for this project, the main thing we want is a 7.5 inch by 7.5 inch square. So for this project, if your borders are not perfect, that's okay, as long as we have this 7.5 by 7.5 inch square. I'm going to go ahead and erase these lines I don't need. All right, so we have this square in our page now. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it into 1.5 inch squares. So I just put my ruler at the bottom and I make a mark at 1.5 inches. So again, let me just show you guys on the ruler. So you have 1 inch right here, and then the half is right in between 1 and 2. So that's 1.5 inch right there. Now for this project, you have to be a little precise. So I'm going to make a mark at the 1.5 inches. I'll move my ruler over and do it again, 1.5 inches. And again. And again. And you should be able to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll have kind of 5 spaces for 5 columns. And I'll do the same thing at the top, and I'll show you guys how to do it just a little bit faster if you feel comfortable. So I use the clever trick of math. So I go 1.5 inches. And then I know that, 1.5 inches plus 1.5 inches is 3. So I can just make a mark at 3 inches. And then at 4.5. And then at 6. So that's if you feel super comfortable. It's just a little bit faster, or you can move your ruler each time. I'm going to go ahead and just connect these. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side right here. So I go 1.5 inches, and I'm going to do it the quick way. So 1.5 inches, 3, 4.5, 6. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Inch and a half, 3, 4.5, 6. And I'll go ahead and connect these. And so now we should have, what is that, 25 squares on the page, like that. So make sure that your squares look good. Make sure everything looks good, because if something's off, your triangles are going to be kind of a mess. So now we're going to divide our squares into 100 triangles. So to do that, I just kind of take my ruler. I'm going to go just in one direction all the way across. So I'm just kind of lining my ruler up with the corners of the square. I'm going to draw a line through like that. And then I'm going to go to the next one. So you don't have to do each square individually. You can do multiple squares at once. So I just line up here. And if I've drawn my squares correctly, it will line up, perfectly. And I can just draw a line through the whole thing. So remember what I was saying about, when you use the color straight out of the tube, if you use ultramarine blue out of the tube, it's always going to look like ultramarine blue. And so we want to think about mixing our colors to make them unique and make them ours. So with this project, it kind of gets you to figure out how to, expand your colors by mixing them. So similarly to on the color wheel, how you can make that when you mix a black into yellow, you get kind of a green. You'll find ways to make violets or browns, just by mixing colors that you didn't think could make them. All right, here we go. So now I have all these triangles. So now I'm going to go in the other direction. So each square gets like an X drawn through it. Oops, I kind of slipped on that one. All right, so this is what we should have when we are done.